This video is just for fun. I'm not trying to solve the game. I'm just trying to offer a fresh perspective on an otherwise loaded series. So, if you're a crybaby that can't appreciate someone having a different idea than you, then leave. Alright? Perfect. Oh great, never mind, now they're commenting. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and I'm being told to say that the opinions stated in the intro do not reflect the opinions of Top 10 Gaming. Okay, they didn't actually make me say that. This is the real main character of Five Nights at Freddy's, thanks to Orville Elephant's Ultimate Custom Night voice lines. The line that started this theory was found, at least for me, when I was researching part 2 of FNAF Tiny Details Nobody Thinks About. There I was going over all the Ultimate Custom Night lines when I heard Orville Elephant say, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us, but I won't let that happen. I will keep you here, I will hold you here, no matter how many times they burn us." But from our understanding, the spirits of William and Cassidy, Golden Freddy, who was talking for Orville as heard in the background, were released by different people. Henry set William on fire in FNAF 6 and then Michael in FNAF 3, since we play as them, right? And the speech over the ruins of Freddy Fazbear's might mean that Michael did it, but this line confirms that both people were set free, or at least attempted to be set free, by the same person. And since we know that Henry caused the FNAF 6 fire, that would mean that he caused the FNAF 3 fire. But how do we know he's the character we play as? The puppet. The puppet was at the FNAF 3 location before the fire started. We can see them in the camera on occasion. Through the whole game we're playing kid noises to distract them, but how would we lure the puppet? It wouldn't come here out of its own free will unless it sensed something, like the thing Lefty emitted to capture it. A bracelet code like the one we see in the security puppet minigame. It's the only thing known to lure the puppet to a specific place. It had to have been there somewhere, and Henry was the only one who really knew about that. Why would Henry bring the puppet? So he could set the soul of his daughter free along with the original 5 missing kids. He knew about them obviously, and that's why he used them as his fake names for whenever he worked at a new location. Fritz and Mike are 2 of William's original victims, and Henry used them so William would know that he was coming. That's probably why William tried to get rid of the animatronics in the FNAF 3 minigames, so Henry would have no cause. Well, as we know, Henry does set their souls free, but he tried in the FNAF 2 and 1 locations first, messing with the animatronics in an attempt to set them free where he gets caught, hence the firing slip at the end of the custom nights. The odor could be because of gasoline, or because William figured out that someone was coming for him thanks to the names of the hires, and told them to get rid of this person however they could. This could also be where William got the idea to get rid of his problems by dismantling the animatronics. The puppet also says a line in Ultimate Custom Night that could help back this theory further. The line, "Seeing you powerless is like music to me," could be because she was the victim, but it could also be because her father finally did it. He finally beat William and set the souls of the victims that possessed the animatronics free, and now he's stuck in a coma in a useless body. Well, William is. Well, at least until he can possess a hard drive in FNAF VR and merge with your mind. It would also make sense from an age perspective. From what we understand of the timeline, Michael would have only been a teenager by FNAF 4, and no place would hire a teenager as their night security guard, even if he was using a fake name. And William would be able to tell where he was going at night since he still lived with his father. So Henry makes more sense since he would know what was going on during the events of FNAF 2 and 1 and be of age to actually work there. Maybe Henry's the one whose soul is possessing the security logbook. I mean, that would place the book after FNAF 6 since that's when Henry would have died, but it would explain a few things like asking about the carousel, or maybe the Mike from the logbook isn't actually Michael Afton, but instead Henry, who wrote his fake name down at the start, hence why it's crossed out. He could have known about the nightmare and the casual bongos because he did his research. He worked with William, he knows what's going on, and he's the only one who can see it, hence why he relates to Clara from Immortal and the Restless. And he would have written all of this down, maybe even some secret messages in special ink that only gets revealed with blood, so he can hand it off to Michael Afton in order for him to learn the truth about his father and about himself. The possibilities are endless, and honestly it helps with some of the gaps we've been seeing, since after all, FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after William gets sealed in the back room. So at that point Michael would be of age, but before that Henry is the only one who can try and take down William, but eventually he will get old and frail and recruit Michael to help. Maybe the book is what he gave Michael when he took the job in FNAF 6. Since it's a security book, it would make sense not to have any references to business because, well, it's for security guards. William would also have to give up after FNAF 3 since he wouldn't be able to keep up with the robotically enhanced Springtrap. So he passes it on to Michael, and that's why we don't see any more fake names. He doesn't need them anymore. William is considered dead since he's been missing for 30 years and is an old man now, or at least would be if not for the spring locking keeping him agile enough to crawl through a vent at decent speeds. We need to remember that William at this point is like in his late 50s or even mid 60s, so this guy is getting a lot of help from the robotic parts. Well, there we have it, friends, the real main character of Five Nights at Freddy's. This wasn't meant to be a 1 million IQ theory, this was just meant to be a fresh perspective on a series that we really need to look at in a new light. We've seen so much from this series, but keep going with the same theories, and if we can look at things from other perspectives, we might notice or unlock some things that we hadn't seen before. Okay, recently I pitched a theory in my last FNAF video, the top 10 scary FNAF theories that you've never heard. If you want to watch that, click up in the top right corner, and there were some questions that arose in the comments and some more information I found after going through this. The FNAF Survival Logbook. This has been a point of a lot of frustration for theorists for a while now, but today I aim to solve the mystery of how Michael Afton is both Foxy Bro and the Crying Child. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm your host Connor Monroe, and yes, I bought the security logbook on Amazon Prime specifically for this and future FNAF videos, and went over every single inch of it with a black light, just in case. I was confident in my theory the last time I talked about it, but now I'm even more confident in it now that I've figured out what I have. It answers a lot of questions and it ties back to the original FNAF novels as well if you want to go in that direction. So, let's get into it. First, let's address the comments and questions about my theory that I saw in the comments of my video and on Instagram. Firstly, where is William and his wife's room? I used the evidence of there being no Mike's room as why he doesn't exist, you know, because he doesn't need one. Well, I did actually mention this in the video, but there is a door located on the left side of the room with the television that I'll be calling the family room that is perpetually closed and you can't open it. Despite the door being connected to the family room, there is nothing really odd about it. William is a secretive man who would obviously need to keep his door closed and locked because, well, you know, I'm guessing there's going to be some evidence of mass murder in there. And I've only ever seen doors leading to other rooms, never a door leading into a hallway. It doesn't lead up or downstairs because there would be no point in locking that door, and it wouldn't lead to a hallway because you shouldn't be locking that door if there are multiple rooms connected to it. How would either Michael or William get to their room if the door to the hallway was locked when they were outside the door? So that is 100% William's room, which we have no reason to see in the context of this game. Secondly, there is the matter of Midnight Motorist. The Midnight Motorist game features an Easter egg that has William Afton in the form of the mustard man or yellow guy walking to see Crying Child having escaped to Freddy's. This wouldn't be a problem, but we see Michael sitting on the couch watching TV, who says to not give the Crying Child a hard time because he's had a hard day. This totally blows my theory up, right? Well, my thing is, we've been seeing this entire series with the exception of a few games from Michael's perspective. He's the one going around dismantling animatronics, trying to set their souls free, and find his father after he gets trapped behind the wall. So, if we've been seeing this whole game from Mike's point of view, why not the flashbacks? That's what this is after all. Mike is the character we play as in Pizzeria Simulator hands down, no question. And while playtesting the game, he remembers a time when his father came back home. It's not like that flashback is literally a feature of the game. This is a flashback from Mike's point of view, so of course he would remember this with having a little brother because at this point William brought him back and altered his memory. Whether he did that through making him a robot or some other means is unclear, but the explanation for the memory containing both children is clear. This goes for the FNAF 4 minigames as well. We see until the Crying Child dies, but his brother is constantly there scaring him. He's always there. Finally, speaking of FNAF 4, let's talk about the nightmares. I saw someone bring up the point that in the actual gameplay, the house is different to what we see in the minigames. This is true, no arguments here, but you need to remember that while in the actual gameplay, Crying Child is in a coma. None of this is real. This is proven by the IV pill and flower pot Easter eggs that you can see sometimes next to your bed. Also, the fact that Nightmare Freddy straight up says that he is now given flesh to be your tormentor during Ultimate Custom Night. So in reality, nothing of what we play is real. And I don't know about you, but if I'm having a nightmare in a house, it's almost never an exact replica of where I'm living. It has the sense of home, like you know you are home, but the layout isn't the same. And having feelings in dreams is very true. Molly Burke, a popular blind YouTuber, says it's still possible to have dreams when you're blind, but instead of seeing, you just feel scared. You get the feeling of being scared without actually seeing anything. So having feelings in dreams is true in the real world. Okay, now to the new information. YouTube user Inky Inc commented on MatPat's latest FNAF video about Foxy Bro, stating that the faded text is in reality talking to another spirit trapped inside the book. This would make sense given Matt's conclusion to Golden Freddy potentially having two souls trapped inside. Then they direct us to pages 89 and 901, where the other spirit is replying to questions or statements in the form of altering text in the book. The page is a shift review where you rate your stats on a scale of 1 to 10. The other night's having these as well, but instead of having a normal overall, fulfillment, health, stress, purpose, hope, and existential dread, we have health be replaced with I can hear sounds, and existential dread replaced with it was for me. And on page 109 it's the same thing, except this time fulfillment is replaced with I can't see, and purpose is replaced with I'm scared. This could be another spirit communicating, but in reality I think it's hallucinations. While yes, the changed text appears to be aligning with the things that we've seen the spirit ask in the past, like the party was for you and what did you see, the spirit continues saying these things after getting a response. On page 103, the page talks about who you'd like to invite to your party. The spirit once again says the party was for you, but earlier, on page 89, we saw the text say that it was for me. Why, if these spirits are communicating, would it still repeat the same question after seeing the crying child acknowledge it? I genuinely believe that even though these things seem to be in response, it's actually not even there. The book plays with the concept of memory by saying things like, was your favorite ride the carousel? Do any of these toys look familiar to you? And did one of these toys belong to you? And that's no mistake. It's trying to get you to remember. That's why it's asking what do you remember and do you remember your name? Even if we wrote it at the beginning of the logbook, it's trying to get Mike to remember something before all the madness, to explain why he has memories of what Nightmare Fredbear looks like. Why would the spirit be asking another dead children if he has dreams? Of course he wouldn't. He's dead. The crying child is dead. Unless he isn't. I have a feeling that these changes in text aren't another spirit communicating through the book, but rather hallucinations that Michael sees as he remembers his first attempt at life. Before, as he writes on page 99, a section about explaining unfortunate events, he tripped and fell on Freddy's teeth. Not our fault. As he sees 10 pages earlier, I can hear things. He can hear the employees making excuses about him getting bit. And as he sees 10 pages after, it's dark. I'm scared. As he remembers the feeling of nightmare coming for him. But don't worry, son. I will put you back together. The hallucination theory still has legs when you look at it scientifically. Common causes for hallucination are sleep deprivation and extreme stress, and both these hallucinations come at the end of a shift, at the end of night 4 and 5, which we know from playing are the most stressful and difficult nights. Plus, Michael gets to work extremely early. As we can see from the night 5 incident report, something happened at 8:11. Whether it be AM or PM, Michael is up for a lot longer than his 6-hour shift. But we can get even more specific. He said on page 6 that employees get free pizza, so in order to cash in on that prize, he would have to be there before the kitchen was closed. Which, as shown in the rules on both in-game posters and in the book, would be before dark, since the guests are told to leave before dark as well. So you would need to be there by at least 6 PM dinner rush in order to secure a slice and make sure that there was still some extra for him. After all, he never said that they only get free food while working. And if he was a night guard, he wouldn't really get free food while working because there would be no pizza for him to have, because, you know, it's night. Kitchen's closed, there's no extra food. Now I know what you're thinking. Connor, we see at the beginning of the book that Mike had this book before us. Why would we be seeing his hallucinations? And I have an explanation for that too. We've seen this entire game through the eyes of Mike, like I said earlier, with the exception of FNAF VR, AR, Ultimate Custom Night, and 4 if you don't consider Crying Child to be Mike yet. This explains the reason we can see both of them in the flashback minigames and such. But if we've been experiencing this series through Mike's eyes this whole time, why would it stop now? This explains so much. It explains why people thought that there was a second spirit. It explains why the first spirit keeps talking even after the second one would have responded. It explains how Mike knows what Nightmare Freddy looks like. Crying Child was in a coma when he saw him, so he would have no way of describing him to Mike. It explains why he would remember the purple plastic telephone, why the carousel ride would be his favorite, when the pizzeria wouldn't have been open when he was young enough to fit on it, and why he knew instantly what someone would say if they got bit by Freddy.
Freddy. Hell, it could have been his father who even gave that excuse. It would explain why William wanted to put him back together. He saw something, and he knew that if his father caught him, he would suffer. Remember what will happen if he catches you. It's me. The crying child is me.
There has been a lot of confusion surrounding the character of Golden Freddy. Very little was known about this mysterious FNAF animatronic, yet we still became entranced with him. However, after more of the series has come out, we've gained more and more information about this character. We figured out who possesses the animatronic and that there are actually 2 souls inside of it. Actually, I think we're wrong about that. And I have proof. That's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is my FNAF theory. We were wrong about Golden Freddy. Let's do it. I originally stumbled upon this idea when researching more about my Michael Afton is a robot crying child theory, but this has nothing to do with that, I'm just providing context. The main piece of evidence I was looking for was that Cassidy would not share a vessel, so if Cassidy was possessing Golden Freddy, the amount of anger and agony that Cassidy has would not allow for another soul to possess the suit alongside her, no matter who it was, even if it was her killer's son, especially not her killer's son. So it's just Cassidy possessing Golden Freddy, I hear you asking? Because this would just be circumstantial and based on your opinion of how you see the character of Cassidy. You could see her as being more than willing to share the suit with William's son since they both suffered the same wickedness, right? Yes, and that is entirely true, except I have some ideas that would present an entirely different solution to this problem. Allow me to explain. Fazbear Frights has given us hints as to how the game world operates over the last year or so. So far, with 9 books in the series being released, with the 10th coming out on my birthday this year and an 11th shortly after. However, there is one book that I'd like to call attention to, and I'm sure you can all tell which one it's gonna be. In room 1280 of Heracles Hospital, something evil is keeping a man alive. A man with gruesome burns all over his body and an iron will to live. The man in room 1280 is the 3rd story in the 5th Fazbear Frights book, Bunny Call. The only Fazbear Frights book that I currently own. For good reason. I have the 10th pre-ordered though, don't worry. The story, written by Andrea Wagner, revolves around a man with, as the book summary described, horrific burns all over his body. His organs are exposed, his face is missing, he has burn marks all over his body, and this man was taken off life support years prior to the story, yet somehow is still alive. The story ends with this horrifically damaged man being taken to a Fazbear Entertainment distribution center where he promptly explodes. This story is obviously meant to represent or very well be William Afton, who did end up escaping the FNAF 6 fire but was horrifically damaged because of it. The story was meant to show us that William had a soul possessing him, the soul of a young boy with curly black hair, rosy cheeks, and an alligator mask. The mask being in reference to the Happiest Day minigame from FNAF 2. This explained how William always came back, how he survived the spring locking, the FNAF 3 fire, the FNAF 6 fire, and how he possessed a hard drive to be scanned in FNAF VR. He was taken to the warehouse before his death. But one thing always really bothered me about this story. Who is that kid? From what I understand in the epilogue, the boy then becomes a second soul inside of the Stitch Wraith, and that's what made everyone think that Golden Freddy had 2 souls, but I don't think that's what the story was trying to tell us. There's always been some form of confusion around the one you should not have killed, the one who keeps torturing William in Ultimate Custom Night. We all thought that it was Cassidy, who we assumed to be Golden Freddy, who was the one doing it, that she had trapped William in purgatory and was making him relive the horrors that he caused over all those years. But that, with the release of this book, was disproven, since William wasn't in purgatory or hell, but rather his own mind, stuck in the hospital either on life support or just being kept alive by this spirit, meaning that this kid would have to be the main antagonist of that game, the one that we see shaking at the end if we manage to beat 50-20 mode. This presents 2 different outcomes, neither of which are what we first expected though. It's weird, I'm gonna go over them, don't worry. First, the simple answer. The kid from the Fazbear Frights books was just a deviation meant to show us that William was possessed by someone, showing us how he was kept alive, meaning that someone in the games would most likely be Cassidy, and the one you should not have killed was not Golden Freddy. Cassidy in this case would not be able to be Golden Freddy, since while multiple souls can possess one thing in FNAF canon, we have not seen evidence that one soul can possess multiple things. In fact, that has been disproven time and time again in the series series, with the puppet having to give life to the animatronics after they've had a soul, or I guess agony, inside of them. This would mean that Golden Freddy was either possessed by another soul, or that everything having to do with Golden Freddy is an illusion. The other outcome would be that this kid from the books, the boy with the alligator mask, is Crying Child. That William's son, after being sent to the hospital and put in a coma by Fredbear, went on to possess his father and keep him alive after learning of his misdeeds. This is just as likely a scenario for me, if not even more likely, since it explains a lot of what we hear and see from characters in Ultimate Custom Night, such as Nightmare Fredbear, whose appearance should only be known to the Crying Child, but it presents itself in William's nightmare, as well as multiple lines, such as "We know who our friends are, and you are not one of them," which is in reference to when the Crying Child dies at the end of FNAF 4, when psychic friend Fredbear says, "We are still your friends, do you still believe that?" But remember that those Fredbear plushies are actually cameras created by William to watch his son, meaning that this line, if it was coming from Fredbear, would really be coming from William, as would the line "I will put you back together," which is also referenced in Ultimate Custom Night, when Nightmare Fredbear says, "I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed." How would Cassidy know about this line, about the "I will put you back together," about the appearance of any of the Nightmare animatronics for that matter, unless she had seen them herself? If this was Crying Child, it would make a whole heck of a lot of sense, especially because of that line, "I am remade, but not by you." It sounds sassy, like I was remade, but you didn't do it like you said you would. Like if your friend falls through on a promise, so then you say like, "Oh, I went bowling, but not with you." I have a friend who does that a lot. He's not even really a friend anymore, just because he is not really a good person. He's not watching, so it's fine. This also explains Nightmare's line of "the shadow fears me," which I originally thought was meant to be about William fearing death, since the purple of the purple guy was meant to represent a shadow. But the one thing that made me sure about this theory was the fact that the alligator mask boy from The Man in Room 1280 is described as a shadow. If this is the Crying Child, who was being referenced as a shadow, it would explain this line. Nightmare is the final antagonist of FNAF 4, the one that Crying Child fears the most, the representation of death, of William's wickedness. The Crying Child has to be the one who possesses William. I mean, it makes sense, William was there when Crying Child died. The Golden Freddy suit wasn't, but William was. When Crying Child died in the hospital, we know that from his lines going through psychic friend Fredbear, he was there with his son. As for why Golden Freddy is moving at the end of the game though, that could simply be a visual way of showing us that William would be back in the next game, by having one of his victims convulsing. Or it could be Crying Child showing William a version of the Fredbear plush. I think that this has to be the explanation, and if not, then Scott needs to fix his narrative structure, because not only does this make sense, it works in a story sense as well, and honestly fits so many things into place and feels good in a narrative sense.